Hey guys, welcome to Gayside Stories, where the gay shit goes. Thank you so much for joining me for another week. You guys know who I am. Remember, listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, your favorite podcast apps such as Overcast, or over on GaysideStories.com/shows. The hashtags GaysidePod and Pods by QPOC. That's what you should be using when you live tweet or post about the show on any of your social media. Appreciate everyone who does that. Send in your listener letters or your Gayside mail to GaysideStories@gmail.com. Remember, that can be letters, compliments, show ideas, stories, whatever. If you had a weird experience with some dude on Jacked, I want to hear about that too. And I will probably include those things in the queer query. So send that stuff in, you guys. So this episode is going to be part 2 of the gay culture series. So to kick things off, let's hear a little bit about what gay culture is from the following. Frankie from What About Your Friends, Ronald Matters from Here For It, Jamin of the Keene Point of View podcast, my friend Thomas B., and past guests repping Dallas, Dayja, Harold, and Jordan. Let's get into it, you guys.
Hey everybody, this is Frankie from What About Your Friends. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Frankie L. Rivera, follow my co-host at Charnel B, and make sure you follow the podcast at WAYF_podcast. So I was given the, lovely task of defining what gay culture is, to me, from our friend Trilificent. So, thank you for that. And, I hope I don't fuck this up, but, for me, gay culture is finding that one person, place or thing, it doesn't even have to be one that makes you feel embraced and liberated. And, I remember being a little kid and just trying to find stuff on TV or music or, friends that I could relate to and that understood everything that I was going through. And it was pretty difficult because, I'd find a little something here and there, but it wasn't, I couldn't find an exact, I guess you could say an exact replica of who I was when I was little, at least until I got older. But, it's all part of gay culture. And it's one of the coolest things about it is that we get to choose, we get to pick what's part of our culture. And, what makes us feel, happy or makes us feel, like we belong. So, yeah. And it's also expression. It's also what sets you apart when it comes, whether it be fashion or, communication, the way you leave an impact, the way you share your story with others, and, being an advocate, fighting against injustice every day. It's all part of expression. It's all part of, what makes people, look at you twice or what makes you part of the conversation. And for me, all of this stuff means finding home, finding, a place where, you can truly be happy, or you can be happy with yourself and, be happy with others, and also finding strength in such a divided world. It's very hard for us as, LGBT folk to be able to, simply just, walk down the street or, go out in public sometimes, without feeling, nervous or scared because you don't know what's going to happen. And, for me, that's what gay culture is. It's being fearless. It's feeling like, you belong here. You can own the night. You can own the world. I hope that was a good enough answer for you guys. Make sure you guys listen to What About Your Friends? New episodes every Tuesday. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, you name it. Yeah. Happy Pride Month. Bye.
Hey, it's Ronald Matters, and I just want to say gay culture and all of our subcultures involved are so dynamic, so inspirational, and all of us matter. Like, the world basically revolves around us. Is that too much to say? Hashtag Let's Argue and hashtag Gayside Pod. Thank you for creating space for this conversation.
Hi, Curtis. This is Jamin. Here's gay culture to me. This is Jamin with Keene Point of View, the best intersection for gay issues, politics, and Christianity ever, at Keene, P-O-V, K-E-N-E, P-O-V on Twitter and Instagram. Gay culture means to me having a community of people who accept you for you as you are. However, that does come with a lot of caveats. If you are too effeminate, if you are too androgynous, if you are too black, if you are too Asian, if you are too short, if you are too fat, if you are too whatever, if you are too normal looking and not pretty enough, it can be a place of ostracization. Is that the right word? Ostracization as well. It's funny to me how the church, growing up in church, the church always excluded gay people from everything except directing the choir. So it was kind of a kept secret, or being in music ministry. But outside of that, gay people were always blasted from the pulpit, told they're being sinful, going to hell, responsible for AIDS, all this other stuff. So it amazes me how gay bars and clubs popped up as a place for people to go because the church was separating them and not being welcoming to them. I fault the church for that, but at the same time, I also fault the gay community itself. It started as a movement with a black trans woman and a Latin woman starting it, but yet it turned into what it is today with groups like the Human Rights Campaign and all these other groups that cater mostly to white men, and social outings that cater mostly to white guys. And it's turned into that now, and if you're not white and at least borderline attractive and at least average build or better, you will not get a date. You will not get anyone to take you seriously. You may have sex, but you will not have anything meaningful as far as what comes out of the larger community. So gay culture to me is a place of acceptance and also a place of something that needs work. I appreciate gay pride events. I appreciate gay pride in general when we all were, coming together and just enjoying each other for a night of dancing. It didn't matter what you looked like or anything like that, but we were all having a great time dancing together and it was great. It was a wonderful time. However, the next day, 2 days later after the festival was over, things kind of got back to normal. And if you go on vacation with gay guys who are away from the culture and the cities where they live and the communities they're in, they're a completely different person. They're nice to you. They will actually talk to you. They'll be friendly. Whereas when they're with their group, they won't. So gay culture is a place that needs work because you need to let go of those mean girl attitudes. We're not in high school anymore, but it's also a place of acceptance and sometimes can be unconditional acceptance. Depending on where you go. And if you cannot find that, then create your own group for acceptance within the group and create your own place and space and make room for yourself in the place where they are. So that's what gay culture is to me. Thank you. Bye. I'm hanging up this time. She ain't hanging up on me.
Hi guys, my name's Thomas Bridges. I'm from Orlando, Florida. And I was asked what are my views on gay culture. And as a whole, I feel it's a group of people who are fighting a fight to be accepted in a world that ultimately doesn't accept us, but tolerates us. And that's basically how I feel about it. Like, our culture is just a group of people who are trying to be accepted. Like, in everything that we do, we fight for acceptance, when I feel as if we shouldn't fight anymore. Like, what's the use of us fighting for a people to accept us when they don't? Like, just, we can live with not being accepted and go on in life and just do what we have to do in life. But, I mean, at the same point, everyone wants to be accepted at some point or part of their life. So it's just a journey that we all go through. It can be sad at times, and at times it can't be, but I feel the gay culture is just looking for acceptance in all ways. And with the recent activities of things that have been going on in the world, all I can do is say we just need to pray. But that's about all I really have to say about that. I think that's about it. Yeah, that's it. You guys have a great night, great day, and have a blessed one.
Hey, what's up? This is Harold J09 from Dallas, Texas.
Hey, this is Jordan, Jordan.Toro85. I am from Houston, the Bayou City.
Hey everybody, this is Dayja, also Quez, Quez, and today we're going to be talking about gay culture. To me, gay culture is it's a broad spectrum, I would say, of creativity, strength, resilience, and longevity. That's what gay culture represents to me.
Mm-hmm. You know, I actually agree with that, but I also think gay culture it's a subculture within itself. I think gay culture can be a variety of, feelings, things, what you do. So it's a big spectrum.
I think gay culture is about family, extended family that comes from the biological standpoint, to where when the family doesn't accept you when you first come into yourself, and we come together as a community and we become a family.
Yeah, I actually agree with that too, because, it's like your family away from your family. When you're not with your actual blood family, you do have the gay culture. And I know from what I've, remember hearing that, gay culture is basically your second family. So, it's really a broad definition.
Yeah, we all have different definitions of what gay culture is. Like I said, it's a spectrum. Creativity, longevity, we've been around. Gay culture has been around for a very long time, even with things that we didn't think exactly was gay culture. It is. Mm-hmm. And now there's a lot of, as you said, Jordan, subculture in the gay community. Now it's all of a sudden, it's very mainstream. Yeah. Gay culture has become mainstream, and there's a lot of subcultures
within it.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
Okay. So now talk about what it means to you, just because we're already at 2.5 minutes.
Well, to me, gay culture, you mean personally, gay culture it means that you can just be happy, like the definition, what it originally was. Happy, you can be yourself, you can be free, be a butterfly, whatever,
And to me, gay culture means acceptance. It's like accepting who you are and just going with trusting your instincts and just being yourself and being honest with who you are, and just being happy with it, being happy with yourself.
Yeah, it's important to me because
it represents a part of who I am. That's what gay culture is to me, and who I strive to be. When I think about, like when I was talking about strength, when I think about like the Stonewall riots and things in the 60s, things like that, like it represents strength. That's what gay culture is for me.
You know what? And a lot of times, mainstream society doesn't see gay culture as strength. So I'm so glad you brought that to my attention. You know.
Yeah.
Wow, that's deep. Yeah.
It's strength.
Yeah, strength. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean, this is probably another topic altogether, but like when you think about Black culture, you want to take away from it all the positive things and the things that people have done before, for us, the positive things that people have done, and I just want to hold on to that when it comes to gay culture.
Right.
But of course, things get crazy.
Right. Yeah.
Which is probably what we're going to talk about.
Right.
It's not that cut and dry.
Yeah.
Never.
And now, let's continue the conversation with someone a little bit older in the community. So I have with me on this episode J.W. Richard. J.W., thank you so much for agreeing on relatively short notice to join me to facilitate this conversation about gay culture.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for the invite. From listening, I'm just excited that your show is back in the mix. And not only do you come back doing your shows, you've got a whole mission to really gather all of the QPOC podcasts together with your hashtag pods by QPOC, right? It's it. Make sure there's a word I'm missing.
Yeah. No, that's it.
Okay, fantastic. We'll see. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm doing my best. I gotta keep thinking of ways to get it out there and get more podcasts to submit, because I know it's easy enough for the podcasts that I'm aware of, but it's the ones that I'm not aware of, which I've had some, and I'm appreciative that they jumped on board and submitted their details, but I know there's plenty more. I mean, I don't expect it to be, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, but I think there may be a couple hundred out there. So if you're hearing this and you know of a QPOC hosted podcast, let them know about the directory and send them my way. But speaking of podcasts, you mentioned in our brief introduction that you have a podcasting past, and I would love to hear a little bit about that.
Okay, sure. From 2005 to 2010, I came back to Dallas. I was in Houston for a little while with a band, and I came back to Dallas for a job. I wanted a way to get into the gay community in Dallas, and I had just heard about something called podcasting. And so I started doing some stuff, going through some HTML, learning about RSS, and put together a show called Mandrake Society Radio. And Mandrake Society Radio ran for those 5 years, 2005 to 2010. And it was a great experience in learning about the community. And people were tripping about the name sometimes because they're going, well, I don't know if it's gay, Mandrake Society Radio. And I said, well, Mandrake is an herb that was used for childbirth and was also referenced for as an aphrodisiac. So one of the tagline for the show was "Make love, give birth, change your community," and I was really talking about in terms of ideas. Although you could say a baby would be a change for the community as well. So that was Mandrake Society Radio.
Wow. Talk about OG 2005. Wow. That
was it was a tricky thing, right? I mean, because at that time, like now, people understand what podcasts are. Mm-hmm. I kind of laugh about that because I remember talking to people and wanting to have them interviewed on a podcast, and they were like, "What? is a podcast? What is that? And so, it was really funny selling that idea to some people locally, but then things sort of took off and they began to hear more about it, and had a chance to talk with a lot of different local people as well as entertainers from across the country.
That's amazing. So not only do I have someone with a little bit more experience than me just in life, I also have a pod father. I love learning about these interesting things about people. Like I would not have ever known that you had done that had you not just mentioned it in setting up to do this show with me. So,
well, I was going to say there's actually one way that you will hear about more Black Gay podcasts soon. Stephen Fullwood is actually putting together a podcast directory of all the different podcasts that were done before and are done now. So he's actually taking information from people and having them send clips of those podcasts. So there would be a podcast directory. He's done the same thing for Black Gay parties. Like he's taken flyers and made this sort of archive of different parties that were done across. So this is one way that a lot of people will find out about our history in podcasting too.
Wow, that's super interesting. I'll have to be on the lookout, or hopefully you'll share that with me and I can share that with my listeners, because I would be very interested in seeing that.
Most definitely.
Because right now the effort that I'm doing is just podcasts that are smaller and new on the scene. I mean, there's some bigger ones on there too, but it's all within the past 5 to 6 years versus that history that you're saying that's 8 years ago or more. So,
but your history is what you're bringing now is important. People, and it's great to have that collection of podcasts now, so that we also see different shows that were before. And as you understand, it's a lot of work to put together a podcast, to make weekly shows. So you get how much work in production and in subject matter and all those different things going on. So it's just recognizing and honoring that history.
Exactly. So I'm excited about that. I'm glad you told me.
Mm-hmm.
Be on the lookout for that. So let's switch gears and let's get into the gay culture. So first up, I want to know, what is gay culture to you? How do you define it?
What it is, and I guess I'm trying to make sure I don't answer what it should be. It can be an opportunity for men to create, gay men to create brotherhood with each other. I don't believe that the internet has helped us in that effort. I don't believe that dating apps have helped us in that effort. But for some people, that's all they really have. And so gay culture, for me, would be the opportunity for gay men to spend time, create a sacred place, and I say sacred, including the sexual, a sacred place among other gay men, away from our allies, our straight allies that may mean well, but they're just sometimes when we need to be with each other. Mm-hmm. And even from the women that we may call good Judies, whether they're heterosexual or lesbian. I just think we need that time to be with ourselves, and we talk some among ourselves and build that brotherhood. That's what gay culture means to me. And that opportunity is always there in different parts of where we live.
Okay. So you already answered the next question, but since you mentioned it, let's double back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I have 2 bonus questions. So first, I want to know, where do you see the internet and the apps fitting within the culture? You said they don't really help bolster the culture, but what's their position, in your opinion?
I'm very sure that the creation of apps, dating apps, I'm sure it was done in a way to really make it easier for people to find each other gay people. And I can imagine if you're living in the city versus someone who's living not in the city, depending on where you are with your coming out process and different things like that. When you first get involved, you're like, oh, wow, okay, I'm finding other people that are connected like me. But then when you're using the apps, you realize the issues and the real challenges with these apps in terms of, is it all going to be about top bottom? Is it all going to be about, body pieces? So you never really get a whole face and body and the real person. All you get are, your dick pic or your ass pic. And it's just, again, it's all pieces. And then you're really having to connect with that person once you meet, and it's almost like starting all over again. So even all the things you shared on the app, that's one thing, but once you meet, then you're actually really seeing the person, and it's almost like a little bit of start over. So, yeah, that's a challenge. That's a real challenge.
Okay. Is there any goodness to them outside of maybe helping people find, or should I say, helping men find other men like them, even if it's not necessarily the most platonic boundaries, I suppose?
If it helps men find sex, and sex is really all they're looking for, then I guess in that sense, it's doing what it's doing what it was created to do. I guess I just say the challenge is part because I hear the loneliness that we have, even after, a quick sex deal. There's just that loneliness that we don't always know what to do with. And I question what other outlets we could have to build real community. Also, when I hear safety concerns, because you are meeting someone you've never seen before, and you don't know if the person you're seeing is really the person you're seeing. So there's all of that, and it's just extra things to think about.
I agree, but sometimes I wonder if it's just the culture of, or within the apps, is too far gone to really change and really make it what I think was the original intent of those apps, whereas it can be all things. It can be a social app, it can be something that brings community together versus strictly for sex. Because I feel like a lot of the elements of these apps, they're just kind of bastardized because of convenience. Like, oh, it's a GPS enabled thing so you can see guys close to you. And it's like, yeah. And that could be so that it's easier to get to the genitals. But it also could be because that means you can see somebody that lives around the corner from you and you can go have a drink or meet up and make a new friend. But the culture has kind of, in my opinion anyway, bastardized those features to make it one thing, one size fits all, one stop shopping. And I don't know if we can combat. I see every now and then there's a push from Grindr and from Jacked to change the way guys act on those apps, but I don't know. My gut tells me that your opinion on there needs to be a different way, something new in order to foster that. And the interesting thing about it, I feel like we used to have that to a degree. And for whatever reason it changed with the apps. Maybe it was the location element. But I think back to BGC, like Black Gay Chat, and different sites like that, where they had community boards and people were building relationships with people that they may never meet, may not even know if that's what you really look like. But you would get on there every night or every other night, or have a set time that you would get on there with your quote unquote friends and talk about stuff. It was community. And it was serving that purpose. And at the same time, if you happen to come across somebody and y'all were digging each other physically, you could have the sexual element too. And it works both in tandem, versus now it's just everybody's like, this is a sex app. And it's like, no, it's a social app. You choose to make it about sex, which is fine. But it has more than that. Otherwise, it wouldn't have so many features. It would be just are you looking for sex? Yes or no? And there's even that feature depending on what app. It's like, yes, I'm looking. No, I'm not. But anyway.
Right. No, I believe you're absolutely right. There's an opportunity. And I guess that's why I say it like that. There are challenges now, but what those challenges present opportunities to use it in a different way. Right. It doesn't have to be all a negative experience. You could like have a dinner and say, okay, well, every Thursday we're having so-and-so dinner at this place. If you're new in the community, or if you're new in the Houston community, you can come and, have dinner with us, and it's just us guys. And so we're just chatting, and it could be at a public place. So if there are concerns, concerning the whole GPS, it could be in a public place. So you say, hey, just come meet, and we're just going to chat here in this public place that we all agree on. And in that way, it could be a place that new people who are in the community can just find out, hey, how can we just, just meet and greet from there, and then just take it off from there. So yeah, there are definitely opportunities, and so I agree. It's just what you do with it.
Yeah. So we say all that to say that the apps do play a huge role in the culture.
Sure, most definitely. I mean, it's what we. If you don't know how to reach somebody, you're like, okay, because I know when I first came out, I didn't really like. I look at a lot of associates of mine who are younger, and now that you have all of these hotlines that you can call. You have in Dallas, there is UB, which is United Black Element, and they do a lot of events. And you don't have to be a specific age, I don't believe, to be a part of that, but it's mostly younger guys. And I love that. I love that they have now places you can go, even our resource center, that you can hang out and you can, connect with other people. I didn't know anything about that when I came out. So, that's that.
Yeah, it's younger people do have a lot of interesting resources. So you mentioned it before, and now I'm curious, what, in your opinion, should the culture be?
Sure, just a way to build more community. Again, when I say this, I don't mean to be in any way exclusionary of people, of women or our heterosexual allies. I do believe that there are times when we as gay men need to gather with ourselves. I believe it'll make us better people because we then have the time to do everything. The word is, as I was reading, the word is sacred, and it is including the sexuality, and so sacred is just more of, this is a special place where we can gather. And you know how when you're with your certain friends that you don't have to explain the jokes, and you don't have to do certain things, and we know that we cruise and we know that we do these things. That is where I want to have that type of community where you can come in here, and if you want to cruise, if you want to laugh and joke, and there's places for that, and we're just here among men. It'd be our rich community. Some may even use the word tribe or different things like that. It's just that type of. That's what I want gay, and then we have each other's backs.
So basically, a more community feel, bringing the community together,
right,
in a more positive aspect,
in a more positive way. And I know that this exists in pockets.
I was going to say it kind of exists in pockets, but it's not an overall. At least it's if it is, it's not highlighted the way At least in my opinion, it should be.
So on that thing, I'll ask you a question. When you go to a gay club, how do you feel when there are, heterosexual women in that club and they're having a bachelorette party?
Well, first and foremost, it's been 84 years since I've been to
Well, if it's been 84 for you, it's been 96, 102 for me. So
I've never experienced that personally, but I guess I can give my overall thoughts. And I think, number one, it says something to the fact that there is a community to tap into and that those women are aware of it. But it's also taking advantage of it, because it's like, in order to get away from this, which we don't want, we're going to invade this other space. I do still feel like it's an invasion, because you're having a whole event that's about you in a space that was not created or designed for you, but you have identified that it's safe for you.
Mm-hmm.
And in that does nothing for us.
There we go. And that's what I'm talking about. I mean,
yeah, basically it's like allowing you into our space, and you get to have your fun and get drunk, and you don't have to worry about straight men treating you like how they treat you. That's all fine and good, but you're in our space that we created for us, because in other walks of life, and it could be even the same people, the same women, you would not want us in your space. You did not want us in your space, which is why we created our own, so that we could come and be amongst our brethren and our sistren and our whatever the word for non-binary.
Right. Well, right. I hear you going.
I think it definitely is an invasion, and it's different for us going to a straight club, because that's, for most of us, or I won't say most, but for a lot of us, that's usual practice of an attempt at assimilation. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like an everyday thing for a lot of us, versus in our space, we get to be ourselves completely. If you want to, if in no other aspect of your life, but you have the courage to wear heels and a purse and do all of that kind of stuff, but you feel it in that club, that's powerful.
Yes.
And it is a little stank, for lack of a better term, right now, to have people come into the space and just really monopolize the experience and change it into something completely different. And it's also, but it is sad. I can't ignore the fact that it's sad that you have to do that in order to feel safe and have a good time without worrying about something happening to you. But that should not be at the expense of us making way for you in our space. If that's the case, then there needs to be an initiative, and cities need to hopefully have people that will say, you know what, I'm going to create a space that's specifically for heterosexual women to come and enjoy themselves and have bachelorette parties and all that kind of good stuff. That way they can have their own space and they don't have to worry about being treated any kind of way.
And those, I just feel that those are necessary things. And again, I want to emphasize that I know that there are times when we all need to come together, especially when we're working towards common goals. And there are times when we need our allies, we need our lesbian sisters, we need our trans brothers and sisters. And I do also believe there are times when we are enriched when we do have just our gay brothers together. I believe it with our lesbian sisters. I believe that they are enriched when they just have a time just with them. Same thing with our trans brothers and sisters. I believe that there is places and times where trans men need to be with other trans men who get it, who understand. Same thing with trans women. So
it's really with everyone, because
with everyone.
But I think that hierarchy is most things are catered to and for heterosexual men. And the rest of us kind of have to take what we can get. And if we're lucky enough to band together enough, or just have someone who has us in mind, because we know that a lot of gay clubs are not owned by gay people.
Now that's a whole nother thing right there.
That's a whole nother thing. But someone who
gay-owned business. Whew.
Either thinks enough about us to create that space, or wants to exploit us because we have the disposable income, whatever the case may be. At least we have that space. But the culture is fostered by camaraderie, and that's every culture. That's, like I said, straight men, straight women, trans people, and us, gay men, lesbian women. We all are, as you said, enriched when we're able to have that community aspect.
Yes.
So I want to ask, where did you learn about gay culture?
You know, when I came out and I moved to Houston, I had a chance to meet with someone who doesn't live there in Houston now. His name was Paul Guillory. And at the time, he was the leader of a group called the Men's Gathering. And the Men's Gathering was a powerful thing for me. And it was powerful for two reasons. One, all the men in that group were Black or African American, or at least had the same skin tone. I saw men in there that looked like they could have been my family. And that was a big thing for me. I mean, the first thing that I ever experienced seeing Black men that looked like myself and that were gay was the film Tongues Untied. So, yeah, that's really where I began to learn, was the Men's Gathering.
Okay, so you had a real community introduction, so it makes a lot of sense why, in your opinion, community is so important to the culture overall.
Most definitely, for sure.
So, do you feel like there's a gap in the passing of the culture from one generation to the next?
I do think that there is a way in which we need to be tied to our history that we're not tied to. I mean, a little bit was just in what we were talking about with the podcast thing before. And understandably, you know, because podcasts are still relatively new and people are still relatively just finding out about them and subscribing to them and, you know, finding ways to monetize them. I can understand where a lot of people just didn't make those connections, but I think along those terms. So media, books, films, there needs to be a way in which we tie to our culture and tie to the culture, the people that came before us, so that people know what they're building on and they understand, okay, this is not just something new I created. There have been a whole lot of people that have put some things together. I guess I want to say that there's definitely more opportunities available for people to find out about the culture that they're involved in, and there are opportunities. I can't speak if there's a gap for everyone, because there's some people who are like very well acquainted and very well entrenched in our history. But I guess there is a gap, but that gap is being closed by shows like this that expose more information of what's going on around right now, as well as what went on before. So it's an opportunity, and shows like this help meet that goal, or at least in one way it will meet the goal. Other things that help are, or I'll say other things that would help would also be gay bookstores. Interestingly enough, you know, a lot of our gay bookstores have closed. We don't have those anymore. And that was something as information for different people coming into the community, wherever you were in your journey, because you'd have books that dealt with where you were. Once again, a sacred space where we could get stories about our lives. And now, you know, in the day of Amazon and books, Barnes and Noble and all that stuff like that, our books are on everyone's shelves. But how do you know what to look for? Right. What authors are you looking for? What subject matter? And if they do have a subject matter, like James Baldwin may be in the main authors under B and not in gay. And if you do get the gay section, whether you go to a mainline bookstore or like Half Price Books, you don't know there's a whole lot more that's missing in this. And you just don't have people who care about our community in the same way that those bookstores did. That was their passion, to keep us tied to the present and the past.
And that's kind of a, correct me if I'm wrong, based on what you're saying, it's kind of a shared responsibility.
Sure.
Definitely for the older generation to make sure that the history is not forgotten and passed on, but also for the younger generation to, which we know that the practicality is not there, but you would hope that the younger generation would realize, I don't really know much about this other than the sexual aspect and the stuff that I see on TV and on Twitter, but what's the real history? So I get what you're saying. I definitely get it. I talked about this a little bit when I was having this conversation with some younger guys on part 1 of the series, and I'm curious about your thoughts on it. And that was that, in my opinion, from some things that I've seen over the years and from interactions online and whatnot, I've seen that there's an element of the older generation not really appreciating the younger generation as young men beyond what they can get from them. So it's like the way older men approach younger men, there's a lack of respect. And I'm not saying in all situations, obviously, but you know, you have to put that out there. But I've seen that in a lot of instances, and to me, it was always like I am chasing youth, so I need something youthful next to me, and I want to be around young, beautiful bodies because that makes me feel young. And so the element of passing on the culture is lost because it's like you don't see them as the next generation. You see them as a nice young fuck, for lack of a better term.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. I guess that hasn't been my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious about, you know, the different things you've seen surrounding that. And I guess it really has been more like if an older man happens to approach a young man and they really only see them as a potential sex.
Yeah, as an object, as a sexual object.
And not in the whole father figure in terms of like really passing on information.
Or just like a mentoring situation and things of that nature. However, now that I think about it, and I said that on the last episode, and I do believe that that's true to an extent, I also feel like there's some truth in saying that sometimes the younger generation can look at the older generation in the same way, just with a different goal in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I like older men because XYZ, but it's like I really like older men because they're established and they'll take care of me. And so you're looking at it, I'm not looking at you as someone, as a gatekeeper of cultural information that can be passed on to me. I'm looking at you as a come up. Not saying all, again, but I do think that there's an element that kind of runs rampant in the community where the two generations are not seeing each other as the bearers and the coming up. It's what can I get from you because you have something that I lack.
Okay, so yes, an opportunity for both younger and older men to sort of question how we look at each other, and not in a sense of like, because I believe that, you know, if there is a sexual relationship or something that feels good, feels healthy, and can build, okay, great. But then we have to look at, okay, so what more do we do? And again, we're it's a lot of variables, right? So those young men that are reaching out to some of the older men, some of those older men they're reaching out to may not, all they may know is, you know, sexual things. They may not be very aware of the history themselves because
Correct.
They may have come out late. So
Yeah.
you may be trying to hit up with a guy who's like, you know, 45, 50, 55 because he looks nice, he has, you know, nice stuff, but he may have just come out like 5 years ago and have really no idea of
Right.
gay history and any of that stuff. So he really didn't even know what to give you.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a fair assessment. I think it just depends on the environment too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think with some of the younger men, they may know far more because they've been out longer. They've been able to be open longer, and so they, in many ways, may know a whole lot more culture because they have been connected to it.
Right, because it was safer, not safe, but it's been safer for the younger generation to come out earlier and maybe not even necessarily learn culture, but create culture.
Right.
I think there's a lot of just creation of culture and maybe even rediscovery. Because you're not reinventing the wheel, but you're doing something that was done before, but it was lost in translation.
There you go. And as you create that culture around you, what I would say when I see that is, first, I love it. I love what you are doing now. I honor what you are doing now. Here are some things that have been done before, and if there's anything from this that can help you now, fantastic. Mm-hmm. That way you know what happened before, and it's here as a tool to guide you, not say, well, you don't know what you're doing. What they used to be back in the day was much better, and you don't know what you're doing right now. I would never do that.
Right. So in your opinion, what are the important parts of the culture that every gay man should have some passing knowledge about?
I believe that they should know about our presence and how our presence has always been here in the ways that it has always been here in definitely in arts, but also in business and in community building, in politics, the way that we've always been here. It's important for them to know that. And music is such a huge thing for us. I know for gay men, we have a rich history of things to share. So they just need to know that we've always been here, maybe in different ways, but we've always been here. And to just honor that, you know, when they gather, you know, speak the names of the men who've gone before. Speak the names of people who, had it not been for AIDS, would still be here. Mm-hmm. You know, speak those names so that their spirits and their work continue on in what you do.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because in part one, the guys were saying that, in their opinion, the dealing with the AIDS epidemic is one of the contributing factors to the gap between the older and the younger generation. So I thought that was interesting that you mentioned that.
That is one way, and then also the loss of our spaces. That's kind of where I was like, okay, not only the gap, what AIDS did to our brothers and how it took our elders away, but the loss of our spaces.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow the feel that we didn't need those specific gay spaces anymore.
But I think part of it is it's difficult for spaces to grow and adapt as life and culture changes. And so it's like we're missing that. And I think to an extent the internet is filling the gap, or filling the void rather. But it's not the same because it's not concentrated. And I think the other thing is, like I said before, even though the internet is kind of stepping up and being a balm in that situation, and more often than not, people are different on the internet than they are in person.
It's true.
So I think that those physical locations added a sense of authenticity. So you mentioned earlier the place that music holds for us as a community. So I'm curious on your thoughts of why we as gay men hold female musicians and actresses and celebrities in such high regard. Like, why do we stand for these women so hard?
Many of them, I know that many female musicians have been allies for our community, and we've seen what women have done, once they've gotten into their particular roles and how they've been that ally. I know that I personally have that same question when gay men go so far to stand for their favorite queens or favorite female singers. Now I love female voices, and I coming from a history, especially of a cappella music, I am very I love just different music and different musical styles. I do think though that there are many men, and especially when we're talking about gay men and gay male musicians, that sometimes get overlooked. I think we just see the power that the women have. I do think, though, we have to be cautious that we're not... Like, I remember when guys were in the clubs dancing to Single Ladies when Beyonce did that. And I said, you know what? I have a problem with that song. Why are we dancing to Single Ladies? She's saying, if you like it, you should have put a ring on it. And at that time, marriage equality wasn't even a thing for us.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, why are we dancing to putting a ring on it? Why are we sitting here, oh. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense for us as gay men. I mean, sometimes you have to stop and ask yourself, okay, is that song really connecting with me as a gay man? And I question why that's being bumped so loud here in this gay club when no one really here has the ability to get married, when it's illegal for you to get married. Hell, I mean, it was only 2003 that if it weren't for that particular case, it was actually illegal for you to even have sex with another man in your own bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have, there's a lot of stuff that we just have to go like, no. I'm all about the great songs. Trust me, I listen to Janet's latest song, and I do love what Janet does musically. I love how Janet has been a someone of an ally for the culture. But am I standing for her like she's my ultimate one? I don't know. I'm not exactly sure why they're held. I don't know if I necessarily have a great answer for why they are held in such high regard.
So let's wrap this up with this last question. In what ways do you think the culture can improve and be better?
I believe that as gay men, we need to find ways to be involved in real community around us. I don't believe that doesn't necessarily mean you have to jump on boards of organizations and join on everyone's fundraiser, but I do believe that there is a real connection when you step out of the shadows and get involved with real community around you. Not only does it help you, but it helps other people. Again, other gay men who may not even know it, and now they connect with you and they have this sense of history. Even if it's just in the history of just one person. Like, wow, okay, so I'm not alone out here. I do have someone who understands some of my journey, understands some of what I feel when I'm dealing with this and coming out. Get involved and create real community around you. Whatever that means for you and the community around you. Look around you. If there are people that are around you that are, all the same age or all the same thing, see if you can try to reach out to some people that don't look, if it's all a younger group and you want to connect with some older gay men, see if there's older gay men that will be interested in just talking and sharing amongst your young group. This is the same way I'd want for older men, if they were talking, to have a couple of young people in there that listen to some stuff and feedback on some ideas. And, that way we just learn from each other and share from each other and take back to our friends and grow. And the culture continues.
Fair enough. That's going to wrap things up. JW, again, thank you so much for agreeing to be on the show and give your thoughts and opinions on gay culture.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invite. I really appreciate it. I'm coming from someone who has enjoyed your show and was reached out to be on it. I'm like, going, okay, wow, I did not expect that. Thank you very much.
Why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Okay, so I'm on Twitter at Mandrake. That's MANDR8KE. And it's so the 8 instead of the A. So you can find me at Mandrake on Twitter. You can also find me at Mandrake on Instagram, although I'm really not on there very much. A lot of times I'm talking about local craft beer, and that is also on Instagram, but you can find that at NTX_beer. And that's North Texas beer, NTX_beer.
Awesome. Thank you again for being on.
Well, thank you for having me. And again, blessings to this show, and I hope you get more listeners as it just needs to be uplifted.
And just like that, another episode of Gayside Stories is done, you guys. So first up, I want to thank everyone who participated in this 2-part gay culture series. It really came out, in my opinion, phenomenally. I'm not going to lie. I got a little emotional putting it together. It was just something so powerful, hearing about what gay culture is and what it means to different men from all different walks of life. So again, thank you to everyone who participated. I don't think this will be the end of the gay culture series, but it is for now. Obviously, there's so much to our culture, so many layers to peel back. So I definitely want to revisit this sometime in the future with some different people, hopefully some of my podcast peers and some other people just out there that listen to the show will hop on and we can discuss it a little further. But in the meantime, you guys, GaysideStory.com, that's the hub for all information. Send your questions, your letters, your I can't believe this dude did this to me on Jacked, all of that to GaysideStories@gmail.com. Rate, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, all of those places. You know where to find the show. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your support. Just thank you, guys. I don't even know what else to say in regards to that. Make sure that you share this show with someone. Share this show with someone else in the community, with other gay men. I really think that the Gay Culture Series is important for as many people to hear as we can get. So please make sure that you are sharing this episode 77 and part 1, episode 76 with some of your brethren, sistren, whatever you want to call them. Also, you guys remember you can find me over on Ratchet Ramblings on the CSPN with Jeremy and Candace. And as always, just love yourself. Top, bottom, verse, oral. I don't want nobody in my house. Whatever you identify as, just love yourself and protect your walls. And I'm out. I'll see you guys next week.